Hello students, and today we're going to be talking about the end of the war and the US entering the war. So on your note page, if you notice, the way that I have it designed is it's a set of steps. The bottom step is 1914, World War I begins. The top step is April 2nd, 1917, US declares war on Germany. So we're going to talk about the steps to get us involved in World War I. So our bottom step, World War I begins in 1914. In 1915, that is the next step up, Germany begins unrestricted subwarfare. What this means is any flag, any ship of a nation, whether it is Britain or France, which are at war with Germany, or any neutral nation, which you have to remember the United States is a neutral nation. A German sub can sink that ship and without warning. That's what it means, unrestricted subwarfare. So an American ship in the water in the around the English coast is subject to being bombed by a German U-boats, actually being torpedoed. May 7th, 1915, the Germans sink the Lusitania. The Lusitania is a passenger ship. So this is the next step. It is a passenger ship. On this ship is 128 Americans. Now, what ends up happening at the time, they thought it was 2 torpedoes. They have since learned it is 1 torpedo and an explosion in the boiler room. So what ends up happening, because it's a brutal attack, 128 Americans die. Many people die on this ship. At this point, Americans are divided between Germany and the US. The reason that it's considered a cause is this is going to turn the US against Germany. They are going to be seen as the bad guys and the enemy. But that's not the real reason that they get involved in the war, because the Lusitania is sunk in 1915. America does not enter the war until 1917. So you're going to see a box that has the Lusitania. At this time, Germany does not want to go against a war against Russia, France, and Great Britain, and the United States. So they are doing everything that they can to keep the United States out of the war. So Wilson does not want to bring the U.S. into this war either. He is the President of the United States. So Woodrow Wilson orders Germany to end unrestricted subwarfare, or the U.S. will enter the war. Then that's the next step, 1915. Germany agrees to end unrestricted subwarfare. That is the box right before 1917. So Germany agrees to end its unrestricted subwarfare. And for 2 years, Germany and America staying out of the war. Now, America's really not staying out of the war because we are loaning British and French banks huge amounts of money. Britain and France are buying large amounts of goods. And on top of that, British propaganda is coming into America, showing the glamour of the war and then also showing how bad the Germans are. In 1917, Germany is realizing that they have to get Britain out of the war, and they really think they can knock her out of the war if they can end the supply line between the US and Britain. So what they're going to do is they're going to restart unrestricted subwarfare. They know it's a risk, but what they're hoping to do is defeat Britain so quickly that it will not become an issue. Then what's going to happen, as soon as Germany declares that unrestricted subwarfare, you're going to have 4 American ships sank. Wilson is still doing everything he can to keep America out of the war, but you have these 4 ships. In addition, the Germans become involved in probably one of the worst mistakes of an Allied power I'm sorry, of a power involved in war. They are going to anger the power they want to keep out of war. They know with this unrestricted subwarfare, they are risking bringing the U.S. in. What ends up happening, the British intercept a telegram by the German diplomat Zimmerman. And in this Zimmerman telegram, what this telegram did is it's basically telling Mexico, if they declare war on the U.S., then what Germany will promise to do is they will support Mexico in a war against the United States. The idea being, if Mexico declares war on the United States, that will keep us out of the war with Germany. At that point, the U.S. is very angry. More U.S. citizens are pushing Wilson towards this war. So on April 2nd, 1917, the United States will declare war on Germany. And one of the things that Wilson said is he is determined to make the war, this is the war to end all wars, and he wants to spread democracy, which will become part of the U.S. foreign policy of the 20th century. So you'll see a box, some facts to remember. The Lusitania, while it is a cause of the war, it is the cause of us beginning to see Germany as being the bad guy, that they are the U.S. enemy. You also have to understand that the U.S. has strong economic ties with the Allied powers. If Britain and France lose the war, they owe tremendous amounts of money to U.S. banks and many of the supplies. And that's going to affect World War II because that's going to keep America from joining the war. So let's talk about some of the end of the war. We're going to talk about the Russian Revolution after World War I. We just need to have the fact that the Russian Revolution has different dates because of the calendar, but for our purposes, we're going to use in March 1917. The absolute monarch of Russia, Nicholas II, is overthrown. What ends up happening then in October, the Bolsheviks are going to take power. You're going to have a civil war, and in March 1918, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, is leading Russia, and they will sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which will officially get them out of the war. So Russia is leaving the war at the same time America is entering into the war. On top of that, by 1918, not only has Russia withdraw from the war, which allows Germany to end the two-front war and move all its troops to the Western Front. However, because the U.S. is coming in, that's going to stop, and you saw that in the video. On top of the U.S. stopping the Allied army of France, Britain, and the U.S., the Ottoman Turks and the Austrian-Hungarians are withdrawing from the war. November 9th, 1918, the German people forced the Kaiser to abdicate. That means he resigns. He is going to leave, which brings us the 11th month of the 11th year. At 11 o'clock of the 11th month of the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day, 1918, the armistice is signed. The armistice is an agreement to end the fighting. What conditions do we need to end the fighting? And that you saw in the video when it goes silent. It does not mean the end of the war. I mean, you don't officially, it's the end of the war. You don't officially have the end of the war till the peace treaty is signed. Some results of the war. One thing to remember, this was the first industrial war. People did not understand this. This is a global war. You had large amounts of debt. The world is left broke. It is going to leave Europe unstable. The Austrian-Hungarian Empire is breaking up. The Russian Empire is breaking up. The German Empire is breaking up. You have to get new rulers in Russia. You have to get new rulers in Austria. You have to get new rulers in Hungary, new rulers in Germany. The modern Middle East is going to be created from this war. You're going to get new nations, and then you will also have imperialism being affected, and a lot of seeds for World War II come out of this war. And that is something to see, because a lot of historians now are arguing with the 100th anniversary that this really sets the tone for the 20th century. So I will see you in class tomorrow, and I look forward to it.